This is Brian Forster, and this is a video for those of you who have not seen my other videos from 2018 in February, where we explored ancient Mexico. Now, of course, many of you will be acquainted with cultures such as the Aztec, the Olmec, the Zapotec, etc. But we're going to have a look at structures which are somewhat anomalous and may very likely have not been made by these cultures. This, for example, is the Temple of the Sun at Teotihuacan. It's not actually known how old it is. The Aztecs discovered it on their journey to Tenochtitlan, which is now called Mexico City. And also at Teotihuacan, we have the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. And you can see that the construction technique on top is inferior to the basalt blocks that look like they were cut using some kind of saw. Now, since cultures such as the Aztec and Olmec and even Maya didn't really have any metals to work with, they were basically Stone Age. So were these basalt blocks that look relatively uniform recycled from an older structure that they found in place? I think there is a strong possibility. And now here we are at Tula, and Tula is located about a 2-hour drive from Mexico City. And this is where we find the famous so-called Atlantean Warriors. So again, you see stones in the staircase that appear to have been recycled. They look like they have been cut using some kind of saw. Some are broken and then recycled. And then here we have the actual Tula figures, the warriors. These are made out of large chunks of basalt. We were not able to learn where the quarry is. It certainly isn't local. And it's not like these are actually huge sculptures, but they are still mysterious in terms of their origin. And then our guide Omar is showing us inside the tunnel system at Cholula, which is the largest pyramidal structure on the planet. Its footprint is quite a bit larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, and these tunnels were constructed by archaeologists attempting to find out how many levels of pyramids there originally were, because a small pyramid was made, then a larger one was made on top, etc., etc. So this tunnel system actually goes on for miles, and you get access to about a mile of it. Then these are what are called the Veracruz Flyers. This is a pre-Columbian ceremony which has survived thankfully to this day. And this example actually is at the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. Then we have the Halawa Museum, where we find these incredibly perfect stone spools that are made out of volcanic glass. We had an American engineer with us, a manufacturing engineer, and when he saw these, he said these could not possibly have been made by hand. They were used by the Olmec people as ear ornaments, but they likely found them and were made by a much older culture. Then, of course, the iconic Aztec Sun Calendar that was found in Mexico City, created by the Aztec people, and it's an iconic image that's even shown up on things like the Mexican currency. And back at the Halawa Museum, we have these Olmec figurines showing cranial deformation, elongated heads, which is something that different cultures in Mexico did in pre-Columbian times. And the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City is one of the finest museums in the world of its kind. It's vast in scale and so big and so artistic that a number of the pieces are actually outside of the museum. So this is one of the finest, again, museums in the world. And we'll be visiting here once again, all of Mexico in January of 2019. No, actually it's February of 2019, and that tour has sold out. But we will be having another tour like it probably in February of 2020. Here is one of the iconic Olmec heads, and this is one of the more classic ones. This again is at the Halawa Museum in Olmec country, and you can see the facial features appear to be almost African, and in fact there are many people who live in the area who do look like that. They're very tall and have African features. Now we're at Palenque, which is a vast complex. Only about 15% has been uncovered. Look at the staircase on the left, quite crude in nature. And then look at the staircase in front. These are massive blocks of limestone. Again, they appear to have been cut and then recycled and put into place during Mayan times. But is it possible that they're from a much older complex? And here again, as we walk around Palenque, you see quite crude construction technique. And then these massive slabs of limestone that appear to have been cut by a saw. And then a staircase. And once again, here at Palenque, again on the right-hand side, you see some very large limestone blocks that appear to have been cut and then recycled and put back into place. And on the left-hand side, much cruder and smaller work by the Mayan people. Palenque is one of the most beautiful ancient locations in Mexico, for sure. And now we're at Etzna, which not that many people visit, and it is completely Mayan in terms of construction. Massive complexes, but technically not that complicated. And here we are at Tulum. And one of the interesting things about Tulum is that the name, when translated from Maya, means built 3 times. And we did see evidence of older, finer construction, such as this wall. Again, these blocks are relatively similar in size. There you have cruder work inside, and they appear to have been reconstructed during Mayan times. And here again, another Mayan wall at Uxmal. And once again, look at the blocks. They're quite even in terms of shape and size. And here we are at Caba, which is a Mayan location. What you want to look at here, again, is the lower course of stones on the left-hand side. You see they're quite regular, and again appear to have been cut using some kind of saw device. And then above, smaller and less sophisticated construction. And this again, here again we see relatively crude construction techniques. This is at Mayapan, which is located quite close to Caba. But notice the lower course of stones again appear to be relatively similar in shape and size. And then cruder and smaller work above. Mexico is much more subtle than places like Peru, Bolivia, and Egypt. But here we're at Chichen Itza. And again, you see these steps are single large blocks of stone. And then you see much cruder work right now in the center. And they're inside the small pyramidal complex. It is quite possible that, again, Chichen Itza was a much older site than the Maya people found it, and they decided to reconstruct some of these buildings in the shapes that they particularly liked. Again, look at the large size of the steps as compared to the relative rubble below and to the right, and then other large blocks that appear to have been recycled, put into place, and carved. And again, at Chichen Itza, you see the outer casing stones of limestone are quite large and relatively even and interlock quite well. And then the core is a lot cruder. So it could be that the larger blocks, again, were recycled from an older structure. Because how did the Maya have the capability of cutting stone? They seemed not to be able to in terms of technology, not even bronze tools. And this part of Mexico is also famous for the cenotes of fresh water. I definitely would not swim in there with all those people. And here we are at Tulum. Tulum is a beautiful location in the Caribbean, but all the construction that we're going to see at Tulum is Mayan, quite simple, relatively crude, as you can see. No apparent evidence of older buildings, of evenly shaped large stone, quite rough, and then stucco coated to appear to be fine looking work. And again, this is at Tulum as well. And because of the exposure of the stone due to weathering, you see that it was originally stucco coated with some kind of lime-based cement, but the inner core work is actually quite crude. And now we are at Monte Alban, which is in the Oaxaca region of Mexico. And here again, to some degree, we see quite crude construction, but here you see a rebuilt wall, and notice the size of that lintel that is at least 5 tons and made of relatively hard basalt stone, so likely recycled from an older construction. And here again, you can see rough work and then some quite large slabs of stone that were probably from an older, more complex building and then recycled by the Maya, and the inscriptions put onto the stones again by the Mayan people. And finally, my favorite spot, and quite a surprise, is Mitla, which is also in Oaxaca. Once again, you see quite rough work here, but the surprise is there. That lintel is basalt and weighs at least 6 tons. And here again as well, the lower wall sections you can see are quite crude, but those lintels, which are the beams going across, look very, very finely made out of basalt, averaging at least 6 tons in weight. We did find out that the quarry is approximately a mile away, but those lintels appear to have been cut by a saw, obviously, and even more possibly machine work, ancient machining being done to create them. As well, we find these large basalt columns, again weighing several tons, and their present context, they don't appear to be functional in any way, shape, or form. Again, I think they were from an older structure, and then they were recycled by the Zapotec people who built Mitla. And again, at another part of the complex, we see these large circular pillars that probably held up a wooden and thatch roof during the Zapotec time. But this beam is quite incredible. It's actually the largest that I found when I was at Mitla, and I'm estimating its weight conservatively at approximately 18 tons. So if you need any more evidence, have a look at this picture. This again is at Mitla. That block is at least 10 tons. So I hope you've enjoyed this. These are upcoming Hidden Inca tours that you can join with us. Once again, we'll be doing Mexico again in February of 2020. And our Elongated Skulls tour of Peru in August of 2019. And as well as Turkey in September 2019, including Göbekli Tepe. And one related book from our 2018 exploration, Lost Ancient Technology of Mexico at Amazon. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.